Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. ADAC is proud to announce the launch of its education podcast entitled ADAC Answers. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. With that being said, let's jump right into it. Hi, and welcome to ADAC Answers, an education podcast for all. I'm your host, Erin Black. ADAC specializes in providing to private school leaders and teachers customized professional development programs to assist their schools with meeting individual student learning needs and increasing overall student achievement. Led and staffed by passionate, committed professionals, ADAC prides itself on delivering to its clients and the students and families whom its clients serve precise solutions to their unique education challenges. ADAC stands for Accountability, Delivery, Access, and Community, 4 words we believe epitomize our work. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and join us in listening to future episodes discussing all things education. Welcome back to another episode of ADAC Answers. Today, our guest speaker is principal of Andrean High School and a friend of mine, Jaycob Knazur. Jaycob, thank you so much for joining us today on ADAC Answers. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Oh my gosh, I'm happy to be with you.
Jaycob, can you share a little bit about your journey from being a graduate of Andrean High School to becoming its principal and what inspired you to take on this role, and give us a little bit of background into your educational journey?
I have to be honest with you, my educational journey at Andrean and now my vocation there has been really a circumstance of happy accidents more than anything. If you would have been talking to 8th grade freshman year Jaycob, I never in a million years would have said I wanted to go to Andrean High School. I wanted to stay at my local public school. It was where all my friends were. But my parents saw something in me and thought that I was worthy of more and needing of more. So they invested in my education at Andrean. And really that opportunity was life-changing for me. It gave me a different understanding of life. It gave me a different understanding of the pursuit of excellence, of college, of career, of my faith, all of those things that just were really bonuses that as an 8th grader freshman, never in a million years would have imagined were important in my life. But now looking back, have just been so essential. Andrea, as I mentioned, had a life-changing experience in me. And when I left there and moved on to college and the early stages of my career, I always knew that I wanted to give back to Andrean in some capacity at some stage of my life. Never would I have thought that would be teaching there or eventually serving as the principal there. That never would have came into effect, but the stars aligned and I had a teaching opportunity there and I took advantage of that and just kept investing further and, for lack of a better term, saying yes. When different opportunities presented themselves and emerged at Andrean, I always said yes. Do you want to do this? Yes. Do you want to take on this role? Yes. Do you want to serve on the administrative team? Yes. Do you want to go and receive a credential and a degree in administration? Yes. Do you want to serve as principal? Yes. And before you knew it, life started to be defined. And here we are some 13, 14 years since being at Andrean and the last 5 years being its principal. And it's just been a beautiful, life-filling ministry from the first day to today.
That's wonderful. And I could imagine that it's pretty powerful seeing students seeing you lead the school now and know your story, that you're also an alum or in their shoes too, which could connect you guys together to have an understanding of, hey, I've been through this too. I've been a student here, and although things change, I had the same opportunity that you do. And now I want to continue giving back. That's pretty incredible.
Times change, but tradition doesn't. Times change, but mission doesn't. And I think that when you get to play that card every now and then that you've been where they are, it gives you a certain sense of legitimacy and credibility. And I think that has in part lasted a certain degree of legitimacy in my own leadership there.
How do the mission pillars of faith, learning, leadership, and service shape the educational experience at Andrean?
It's everything. I think that we're defined by our mission. I think any institution should be. And as a mission-centered and mission-driven college preparatory institution, we have to be. Every decision that we make, every hire that we make, every policy position that we take, every academic policy position that we take has to be rooted in that mission. For us, that mission student-centered. Faith, learning, leadership, and service is why we're there. It's why we're there every day. It's what we hope that students get, not only when they graduate from us and look back at Andrean, but as they celebrate each Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with us. I think everything has to correlate to that. The mission is the why.
Hmm.
And it defines me each day. It defines each decision. It defines what I prioritize, when I get involved, when I don't get involved, how I interact with a specific individual in our institution. The mission is our driving force.
Yeah, and that's so powerful too, because it's just consistent across the board of everything that you just listed. But you don't get stuck in this analysis paralysis stage of what should I be doing? You can make a decision based on the circumstance, but rooted in the mission.
If you can't connect a decision to one of those four pillars or all of those four pillars, it's an
Mhm.
unworthy decision and not worth continued study.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful message or some food for thought for other leaders. What are the key responsibilities and challenges of being a principal of a Catholic College Preparatory Institution like Andrean?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. That's a loaded question. What are my duties and responsibilities? It's everything under the sun. When you think about the amount of emails that you get, the amount of feedback that you get, the amount of criticism that you get, it's everything from how a student enters the building to what they're studying, what textbook they're using, how you interact with them, how you discipline them, how you support them, what college they want to go to, what they, if they even want to go to college at this
Mhm.
stage of the game. That's becoming a more of a focus point. We're struggling with that as a college preparatory institution of how we adapt to that. What our extracurriculars look like, what our alumni looks like, what our parents look like. It seems as if the principal is a one-stop shop in which anything and everything that comes across a constituent in that institution's mind comes to your desk. And you need to have an answer to that. You need to have a perspective on that. You need to have a defense of why you do what you do. So it can be a stressful position. It could be a diverse position, but it's an awesome responsibility at the end of the day.
Yes, definitely. And you're so right. It's everything. It's hard to just break it down into key responsibilities because it encompasses every piece of the community. Something that I know about you personally is that you do a very good job of creating a work life balance and setting boundaries. And I know that's hard for a lot of teachers and leaders, and they struggle with it. And it leads to extreme burnout, which we're seeing in the data that is coming out from the past couple of years. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, we're all guilty of that. I think you have to find a time in your own life as a human being to know when you can shut it off and who you can confide in and who you need to trust. Because, as I mentioned earlier, you have so many verbs that you have to deal with. You have to govern, you have to inspire,
Mhm.
you have to motivate, you have to support, you have to discipline, all of these
Mhm.
things sometimes at the same time. And if you don't have an opportunity in which you can take a step back and be fueled and fed on your own, this position and this role can overwhelm you. So
Yeah.
you have to have a support system. You have to have a balance. I think we've been talking a lot in education the last couple of years, and rightfully so, about socio-emotional support
Mhm.
and socio-emotional education. But we need to do that for ourselves too, as the
Right.
adults in the building and as the leaders of that building, to make
Right.
sure that our vessel is full as well.
I know you mentioned earlier that some kids don't want to go to college and they are maybe thinking about something like trade school or another alternative route to going to college. With that in mind, and thinking about any other scenarios that you want to share, what do you do to ensure you're meeting the needs of the students and helping them fulfill their dreams?
Think that I hate to beat a dead horse, but mission is timeless. And mission can adapt particularly quickly to changing times. We say that about the church. The church is thousands of years old. How is it still here and relevant? Because it
Mhm.
sticks true to its mission. It can meet the changes, it can meet the new fads and the new interests that are part of it, but it remains steadfast. And I think that's true of Andrea, and I think that's true of Catholic schools and private schools in general, is that we serve something that's more important than today, and that's tomorrow. And as long as our focus is the future, and as long as our focus is preparing students for that future in our sake, a Catholic college preparatory or career readiness perspective, we're good. Where they go to college, when they go to college, how they serve in career, how they serve the church, how they serve their community, those are things that are at the forefront, and that hasn't changed. I think when you serve something that is timeless, you can adapt a little bit more swiftly, but know that some of the benchmarks have to adapt to modernity. It's
Right.
When Andrean was founded in the 50s and 60s, college was a luxury. When I was going to Andrean in the early 2000s and beyond, college is a necessity. And
Right.
now we're starting to get to that point in the 20s and perhaps even into the 30s in which college is going back into that luxury standpoint
Yeah.
for a variety of factors. So, how do we maintain that? We focus on our faith. We focus on making good people. We focus on making individuals of competency and conscience in
Mhm.
which whatever they choose to do, they're going to do well, but they're also going to do good.
I love that. I love that. Such a positive outlook on things as well.
You got to be.
Yeah, you do. As an alum of Andrean High School, what unique perspective or connection do you bring to your role as principal?
I think I bring familiarity and I think I bring credibility, and I'm not viewed as a threat within the institution. I think this happens a lot of times when a leader comes into an organization that's been in existence for a while and in which the majority of the staff members or employees or constituents, however you want to look at it, have been there a while. When somebody new comes into the leadership role, oftentimes it's who is this? What do they know about us? What do they know about what we do? Do they appreciate what we do? Are they just here to change things? Or are they here to mix things up? I think when I entered my role, because I was from that community, there was a certain level of respect and as a result, a certain level of trust.
Mhm.
So that when I said, hey, let's try this, let's do this, let's modify this, it didn't come from a spirit of skepticism or fear. It came from a okay, I don't know if I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I'm going to buy into this. I don't know
Mhm.
if I think this is the right way forward, but if Jacob's advocating for it, maybe it's okay. And I
Yeah.
think that happens sometimes. A lot of times people say hard to be a prophet in your own land. And I get that. Sometimes it is. It's hard to manage friends and deal with people that you've had close connections with in a
Mhm.
kind of an authority standpoint, if you will. But on the opposite end, it's also a huge asset
Mhm.
when you say, "Hey, I'm with you in this. I'm walking alongside you. I'm walking beside you. I
Right.
want this place to be successful too. This isn't something for my dissertation. This isn't something for my grad school class. This is
Right.
something that I think is good for our community and it's going to move us forward."
I love that. Can you share a success story or an example of a particularly impactful moment during your time as principal?
That's a good question. I think one impactful moment for me is seeing the results of a decision that you make. And I'm going to give a more generalized answer than a specific, here's a flag I want to wave. I think it's when you look at why you want to do something and you see the student impact. So for us, we changed our graduation pathways a little bit because we were maybe as a result of COVID getting a different aptitude of a lot of our students.
Mhm.
And we were struggling with this is the way that we always teach it. And this is the way that our curriculum has always been. But we're seeing that our students are not responding to it
Mm.
because of drift, because of different attention perspective, all that stuff
Right.
that's valid. So we revised that and we started to look at how we developed our curriculum and we
Mhm.
said, let's make it relevant for the 2020s. Let's make it
Right.
relevant for a post-COVID world, for lack of a better term. I hate that
Mhm.
cliche, but it's necessary to
Right.
to identify and to understand. And we started to look at let's make it relevant to our students that are presently here. And seeing the growth in data, seeing the growth in student achievement, seeing the growth in student empowerment, their own attitude,
Mhm.
their own joy in the classroom, because now they're not struggling and fearful of the class and anxious about the class,
Mhm.
but they're doing well because our teachers are meeting them where they're at
Right.
and growing with them and challenging them in a constructive way, not in a this is where we're at mode,
Mhm.
but a this is where we can be
Right.
mode. And I
Yeah.
think that empowering that relationship with students and empowering that relationships even with teachers and seeing the result of that even in a short amount of time has been just a great success for us.
It's awesome when you see kids really engaged in their learning and they see a purpose for it and they see how it's relevant to their real life. And then they dive in and use different creative ways to access that material and demonstrate their mastery. It really is an incredible process. And it not only brings joy to the student, but it also ignites a fire back into the teacher. It creates such a wonderful opportunity to sit back and remind yourself, yeah, this is why I'm here. I love to help kids learn. Now I'm enjoying teaching them and they're enjoying learning. It's beautiful.
I think we forget about that a lot, that the relationship between the teacher and the student is essential.
Mm-hmm.
And when we view that in an adversarial light, or if we view that in the I'm the teacher, you're the student, let me give you knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
When we view it in that perspective, we're setting ourselves up for disaster. But when we look at it as a relationship, as a collaborative environment, as an empowering environment,
Mm-hmm.
the results are so fulfilling from both levels. The teacher feels fueled, the student feels fueled.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a conference I think it was 2 summers ago now, and I heard a quote from a speaker that kind of inspired this path at Andrean and beyond, in which the young lady that was there was a younger teacher, and she was hearing something at her own professional development at her school. And she said, oh my gosh, my students would never understand this. They would never get this. They would never be successful. They would never do well. And an older teacher was mentoring at the time. And she says, you're absolutely right. Because you don't believe in them, they won't be successful. But if you believe in them and you work with them, they can achieve it. And that changed her dynamic. And that was a quote that really gave me a different understanding of how we can do it at Andrean and beyond.
I love that. That's awesome. I was recently talking to someone about how the education that I received and the way that, the only ways that we were given access to the curriculum was through a traditional method that really didn't work for me. But as being a teacher, I would try to reflect back on that. And then I would have to adapt to where my students were to make them productive members of society at today's point. Kids are learning to code in kindergarten. And that was something that was like, I had no idea about it. The most coding I did was probably on MySpace or one of my my Zynga account or something. But then to know that there are some teachers that were frustrated that they had to learn this to teach these kids. But if we want to put them on the same playing field and have the opportunity to have jobs that may require a lot of knowledge of computers or coding or experience in that way, then we need to be able to adjust what we're teaching and how we're teaching the kids to ensure that we're setting them up for success in the world that they're going to be living in.
You referenced it yourself earlier. It's the concept of adaptability, and how does an institution adapt to changing times? Through our teachers. And how can we expect the institution to adapt or students to adapt when we're not instructing them in an adaptive way?
Right.
So I think the goal can be the same, but what the final result is, but the process that we get there and the path that we get there has to be in their vernacular and in their way.
Last question I have for you. What advice do you have for aspiring educators or school leaders looking to make positive impacts in their education communities?
Stick with it. Stick with it. We have an instant gratification culture in which we expect an immediate result. That's not education.
Mm-hmm.
We're planting seeds, and sometimes Tuesday is a rough day, but get back Wednesday morning and you show up. Yeah. You be there for your students. We are a constant for them. We're a constant in their lives. We're a constant in their growth. We're a constant in their future. And you do that by showing up and sticking with it. Mm-hmm. If you're doing a great job in the classroom, stay there. If you feel you're called to greater things and more things, get in administration. One of my biggest pet peeves as of late is there seems to be like this growing adversity between teachers and administration, and I cannot stand it. And I don't know if that's because I'm in the same community in which I was a teacher and now I'm a leader. We're not an employer versus an employee relationship. Right. We're in the same boat here. And we got into administration because we wanted to impart change, just like you're imparting change in the classroom. And we have to be a team. We have to be there. And if you feel called to do more and to be more and to serve more, get into administration. Don't feel that this is an unattainable goal or something that's not for you, or something that takes away your impact on students, something that takes away your impact with your colleagues. It's a family, and it truly is in our Catholic College Preparatory and private educational circumstances. Stick with it and get involved. Don't get jaded. Don't get pessimistic. Stay with it. Look at those kids every day, look at their smiles, look at their laughs, listen to their jokes, listen to what they're talking about. Try to relate, even if you appear like you're lame. Get involved. It fills you, it fuels you, and it gives you meaning, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It goes right back to your why, and you can be reminded in an instant of your why. And it
Yes.
can go a long time trying to avoid seeing the potential there or feeling burnt out. But if you just put yourself in a position to just be and interact with the people in your community, you're going to find some sort of beautiful message within that it will drive you to want to continue to do it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that every day, I think journaling is important, especially for younger educators. So just what worked, what didn't work, what would I do differently next year, all that type of stuff. And I think that when I was a younger teacher, I would have that log each day of
Hmm.
what worked and didn't work. But then I would also put every single day, what was my highlight of the day and what was my low light.
Hmm.
And I found, looking back a year later when I was going through those lesson plans, I always remembered the highlights. That would always bring a smile to my face. And I would look at my low light and be like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen. But the highlight was an immediate, oh yeah, I remember this day. I remember this joke. I remember this laugh.
Yeah.
So write those highlights of the day.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. I would do that too with my students because they would say the funniest things. And
Mhm.
if I didn't write them down, I wouldn't remember them. But anytime I was having a hard day, I would just go back and look at like a picture someone drew me. It looked ridiculous, or look back at some of the one-liners that came out of students' mouths. And it gives you a little burst of joy. And that does overcome your negative emotions 100%.
Can't
So,
beat it. You can't beat it. And you got to keep in mind too, especially for those younger teachers and maybe individuals that are starting to flirt with administration a little bit, that they're listening. I think a lot of frustration that we've had the last couple of years is they're not listening to us. They're buried in their phones. They can't wait to disengage. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to interact. All of those might be true, but at the same time, they're listening
mhm.
and they're watching and they're replicating in their own way at their own time.
That's excellent. Excellent advice for every educator to remind themselves of. Thank you so much, Jacob, for taking the time out to share all of your experience and knowledge with us. I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we go way back. I'm always happy to help you, and I'm always happy to connect with you. It's a joy and a half.
Oh, love it.
To everyone at home, if you have any follow-up questions you would like to see addressed in a future episode, or if you want to share your thoughts on today's topic, then please submit them to us on social media using the hashtag ADAC Answers. If you would like to hear future ADAC Answers episodes, then please follow and subscribe. And if you're interested in finding out more about our company and the services we offer, please visit us on our website at www.theadac.com. That is THEADAC.com. Thank you so much for listening to our episode today, and we look forward to you tuning in to our next episode. Again, thank you to all of our listeners from the ADAC team. We'll see you next time.